Welcome back to Boilers and Beyond. I'm Jordan Jones. Back here today. Originally this week, I planned to do a deep dive into the Big Ten and the transfer portal in college basketball over the past couple of months. But sometimes you get a lead that you don't want to bury, and this week there was some pretty big news as it relates to Purdue basketball heading into this season, heading into summer practices beginning here in the next week or two. So we're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about the Kanon Catchings news. Also going to touch a little bit on Daniel Jacobsen and some of his rise during the USA basketball U18 team that's been doing really well. And going to close out with a little bit on Matt Painter's contract extension that he received on Friday. We will talk about the Big Ten transfer portal next week. I'm going to pre-record that because I'll be out of town for the weekend. So if you do have any questions about the Big Ten and the transfer portal, please send them on over. You can tweet them to me at BoilersBeyond or message them to me there. You can also email the show anytime, boilersandbeyondpod@gmail.com. And be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts so that you don't miss an episode. I know we're in a little bit of the dog days of summer here. The countdown to kickoff is still a few months away. We are 12 weeks away from college football, but we're going to have some good stuff for you here, I think. Not to toot my own horn or anything, but hopefully you enjoy it. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss a thing. But enough of that. Let's get into the news here. Kanon Catchings will not be playing for Purdue. The news came out Thursday afternoon, and the details of everything are a bit hazy publicly. It's not been super reported on how exactly everything went down, but by the sounds of things, the guys were getting ready to move in, the incoming freshmen, and Kanon Catchings and Matt Painter had a phone call talking about what to expect this season, and it did not go how Kanon Catchings wanted to. He requested to be released from his national letter of intent. Purdue obliged, and now Kanon Catchings is back, on the market, so to speak, as we are about 2 months away from the fall semester starting, as summer practices are starting across the country, and as rosters, for the most part, are completely finalized across the board. You guys probably know who Kanon Catchings is by now if you've listened to the show. We did that whole episode 2 or 3 weeks ago about Purdue's 6-man signing class. That's now a 5-man signing class. So if you didn't listen to it and go back and listen, you can just hit the skip 15 seconds ahead button, 10 times or so, and get out of the Kanon Catchings part because he's not coming to Purdue. There was always kind of this possibility here with Kanon Catchings. It's been fairly well reported at this point. There was the instance, I don't know, maybe May of 2023 after his junior season where he deleted some Instagram posts about Purdue and had removed Purdue commit from his bio or whatever. Turns out he did kind of decommit for a day or two. There were rumors he was going to flip to Indiana. There was rumors it was all NIL related. Ultimately, Purdue kind of weathered that storm, but if you listen to some of the reporting that's been done on this, there's always been some instability here. Played his senior season at Overtime Elite after 3 years at Brownsburg High School. Certainly a little bit different of a culture. I think that fit was always a little strange. Catchings is a super talented kid, without a doubt. He is one of the more talented recruits Purdue's had in recent memory. He can shoot it from outside. He can really jump. He can really move. He is that prototypical tall, long wing player that, those guys don't grow on trees. There's a reason why it's been difficult for Purdue to consistently have guys like that in the program, because it's difficult for everybody. If it was easy, everyone would just have a roster full of those guys and, reap the benefits of that. But I do think the fit was going to be interesting with the overtime elite to Purdue move. Those cultures are just so different. Overtime elite is very much, and I don't want to claim to know a ton about it because frankly I don't follow it, I don't really watch it, and I'm not an NBA guy, so the guys who have come out of overtime elite, it's not like I'm following a ton, but it's very social media, it is very highlight based, it's a YouTube game kinda. That's kind of the end goal here. Whereas with Purdue, it's very substantive. It's a very substance-based program. It's a family type of deal. Very much a team-oriented program with team goals above everything else. And that fit on paper seemed different. There was always a little bit of skepticism on how that would go. I even touched on that in the episode a few weeks ago. But, Purdue did a really good job identifying the talent here. Purdue was in on Kanon Catchings before everyone else. Purdue was in on him before he kind of blew up as a recruit and became that top 40, top 30 type of recruit. Got a commitment from him really early. September of 2022. It was like the day after that Purdue-Penn State season opener in football, where Kanon Catchings committed, and that's a long time. That's a long time that Purdue weathered the storm. I don't think it's some huge shock, but I don't think anyone really anticipated it playing out like this. This is a new one. The day or two before he was supposed to enroll and arrive on campus, backing out is very different. That's a new one. And I've been following college sports and paying attention to this stuff for a long time. But as they say, you learn something new every day. And, you look now at where Kanon Catchings will end up. I have no idea. There were reports coming out yesterday that he's looking to take visits to BYU and Florida State, that Tennessee is interested. There may have been a few other schools. I know On3 released a few of them. I don't know. It's super late in the process. So options are going to naturally be a little bit limited because schools have been filling their roster spots out of the portal for 2 months now. That's the weird dynamic of this, is that you're rather limited on the time to make a decision. He's got to be somewhere in time for summer practices, you'd think. But I think a return to overtime elite is certainly on the table, I would imagine. I'd be surprised if it wasn't. It's a way to, profit off your name, image, and likeness, continue playing. You're not doing college basketball. It's a comfortable environment. I'm not here to speculate as to why things fell through at Purdue. It's not my place to throw out rumors or anything, but and I don't think NIL was a reason here. I really don't, but it's safe to assume that there are some decent NIL opportunities out there for Kanon Catchings should he want that, and should that be, top of mind. I think on the Purdue side of things here, Purdue's going to be just fine. I really don't think Purdue fans should worry much here. Yes, the guy's a big recruit. And frankly, no. Purdue has not brought in a ton of guys in terms of recruiting rankings of that caliber. That has not been Purdue's MO ever. And when Purdue's tried to go after some of those big fish, it often hasn't worked. Purdue's often come up on the short end of those recruiting battles. But the roster is far from thin. There would be a time in Purdue history where this would be a major, major blow to both this upcoming season and the years beyond it. This is not a time where that's the case. Cam Heide and Miles Colvin probably are beneficiaries here because those guys were in line for a much expanded role. They were going to get that anyways. But now those guys are very comfortably, looking at major, major roles on this year's team. Without Kanon Catchings, that's even more exasperated. I think if Kanon Catchings was going to play some of the 4, You look at Caleb First as a beneficiary. Some folks have kind of written him off, and while the last couple of years have not been big for Caleb First, have not been big statistically, or even impact-wise sometimes, don't overlook the value of someone who has played 3 seasons of Big Ten basketball on a team that has 5 freshmen, and some guys who haven't played big roles in the past, stepping up into bigger roles. There's some real value there. He's still a talented player. He still has some ability. By no means am I saying that Caleb First will be all Big Ten, but he's going to play a role this year. I know the instant reaction on decommitments, and certainly something like this, is to be upset. Let's see how things play out here. I don't want this to be all MLB trade deadline where we're talking about the winner and the loser of the trade, but this is going to be determined later. If Kanon Catchings goes on to have a big college basketball career, then yeah, you may look back on this as a what could have been type of situation. But if not, and Purdue continues to do what Purdue's been doing, and that is pacing the Big Ten, and that is making some runs to the second weekend of the NCAA tournament and maybe getting back to the Final Four, then what are we talking about here? Purdue's just fine. We'll see how it plays out. One thing to note as we move forward into 2025 and beyond, the scholarship limit's going to go away. We talked about that last week in the House Fallout episode, talking about the future of college sports. But this does open up a roster spot for Purdue moving forward. Purdue is looking to expand its 2025 recruiting board, it seems, as we've discussed. And one thing to note, in that 2025 class, that's going to be a team that on paper is pretty good. You have Braden Smith, Fletcher Lawyer, Trey Kaufman-Wren as seniors. You have Cam Heide, Miles Colvin as juniors. I think that's a team where if you go into the portal cycle ahead of it and think, boy, we may be one piece away, the way Purdue was with Lance Jones, that kind of opens up that opportunity too. If it's going to be 15 roster spots, that opportunity might have already existed. But even more so now, I think that opens up Purdue's possibilities more moving forward. And who knows with Kanon Catchings? Was he a guy who was going to stick around until the NBA wanted him, if that was the ultimate end result, or was he going to bounce around a little bit? I don't know. There's no telling there. And I don't like to speculate on that stuff because it's not fair. But ultimately, if anything, maybe this drops Purdue's absolute ceiling a little bit this year, because Catchings is a dynamic player that if all came together well, he'd be a really valuable piece. But I don't think it impacts Purdue that much this season. It's Braden Smith's team. It's Fletcher Lawyer's team. It's Trey Kaufman-Wren's team. Cam Heide, Miles Colvin going to step up. Caleb First is your senior. You've got a lot going on there that's all positive for this year's team, I think. Speaking of positives for this year's team, one of Purdue's incoming freshmen has really turned a lot of heads over the past couple weeks, that being Daniel Jacobsen. He's been at the USA U18 event, Olympic type of deal, playing against other countries. He's really impressed. 24/7 Sports moved him up. He's the number 53 player in that class now. On3 has him at 73rd. Remember, with both of those two, this is a 2025 kid who reclassed up to 2024. He's looking really good. He's looking comfortable around the basket. He's able to step out and shoot three-pointers. That's a skill set Purdue's big guys haven't always had in recent years. Matt Harms kind of did, and that was about the extent of it. Jacobsen looks like a really promising prospect. At the time he committed, I thought Purdue probably got a pretty good one. The reclass kind of felt like it came out of nowhere, and sometimes that seems to be a good thing. Guy's progressing really nicely. I think he's going to be a really good player for Purdue, maybe as soon as this season. And that makes the front court picture really interesting. Even with Kanon Catchings out of the picture, It's still pretty crowded up there. We know Trey Kaufman-Renn is going to get big minutes. Is that all at the 5? Is some of that at the 4? What does that look like? I think Cam Heide can certainly play the 4. It would make for a very different look than what we're accustomed to Purdue having. But I don't know how different it would be than, Purdue having Grady Eifert at the 4. And it's not like Mason Gillis was a skyscraper at the 4. I think that's a very possible outcome here. Caleb First, as we talked about, he's still around. And then I think Will Berg and Daniel Jacobsen, can they both play? And I don't know the answer to that. Berg's been in the program for 2 years, but if we're being honest here, Jacobsen's U18 experience is probably more real basketball than we've seen Will Berg play in a game setting. Can't discount Will Berg going up against Zach Edey every day in practice for 2 years, but all Will Berg has done at Purdue is play some mop-up minutes. That's all the minutes that have been available. Zach Edey's been there. No one else is getting minutes at the 5 when Zach Edey's there for the most part. But that's going to be really interesting. If Jacobsen comes in and can kind of beat out Will Berg, then I think the writing may be on the wall there. I don't know if they can both play. I think one of them will get solid minutes, but this isn't going to be a situation where they both get 6 minutes a game or something. That doesn't benefit either of them. One of those two is going to pass the other, and the other probably will be limited to garbage minutes. It's going to be interesting. That's a battle. If you want to look at a position battle to watch for Purdue going into summer and fall practices, it's that one, if you ask me. In that situation, too, how ready's Raleigh Burgess? He comes in, he missed a lot of time in high school with a leg injury, but is he ready to compete for minutes this year as well? Because he could theoretically slide into the 4 or 5 spots. Interesting position there, but, Daniel Jacobsen looks like a real prospect for Purdue. After the break here, going to close with some quick thoughts on Matt Painter's new contract. This episode is brought to you by me. Yes, me. When I'm not watching sports, or more accurately, talking about them, I'm talking insurance with the people of Indiana. As an agent with Indiana Farm Bureau Insurance, I want to help you protect what you've worked hard to achieve. From home and auto to life and business insurance, I'm here to help you. Give me a call at 317-692-7463 or email me at jordan.jones@infarmbureau.com, and let's protect you from life's everyday risks. So on Friday, Purdue's Board of Trustees had their regularly scheduled meeting, and one of the points of order, shall we say, was to extend Matt Painter's contract and give him a raise. And maybe it wasn't even extending, because I think he has the auto renewal thing on anyways. But Matt Painter gets a raise by about $1 million. He's going to make $4.85 million this year as a base salary. And according to the Board of Trustees, this puts him in the top 4 of the Big Ten. Believe he's up there with Tom Izzo, Brad Underwood, and Kevin Willard. Based on what the market tells you, I'd venture to say you could probably argue that Matt Painter's still underpaid at this number. Let's face it, Kevin Willard, Brad Underwood, those guys have not accomplished remotely close to what Matt Painter's accomplished. Kevin Willard's never gotten out of the first weekend. He's never gotten out of the first weekend of the NCAA tournament. I don't think he's ever won a conference title. Brad Underwood's got a conference title. Purdue's beaten him 5 straight times. So it's interesting, but Purdue's been very fortunate here. Matt Painter's very content in West Lafayette ever since the whole Great Missouri flirtation of, 2011. He's been as committed to Purdue as one could ever possibly be. Very locked in, very committed to Purdue. There's just not much to say. This is well-deserved. Purdue is rewarding him for a job well done. It is interesting now. This does make him the highest paid coach at Purdue, which Maybe he was for a little bit towards the end of the Hazel run when Hazel was making $2 million a year. But ever since Jeff Brom took over, the football coach has been the highest paid coach at Purdue. That now flips. It's going to be Matt Painter. One thing of note, too, Katie Gerald's got an extension on the women's side of things. I don't follow it close enough to really make statements or opinions on that, but that was notable, too. So, yeah, Matt Painter's not going anywhere. He's been properly rewarded. And my goodness, he's about to enter, what is this going to be, year 20? Year 19 or year 20 at Purdue? Time flies. Time really flies. Things are going quite well. It's been an adventurous week. Look at the news cycle with the three things we talked about. My goodness, it's the first week of June, and we're having all of these conversations about stuff related to a sport that doesn't tip off until November. But that's where we live in now. College sports has no off season. That's why we do the show. That's why you subscribe so you don't miss an episode. As I said, next week we're going to do a Big Ten basketball transfer portal in review. Going to talk about all 18 teams. Yes, 18 teams in the Big Ten now. We're going to talk about all of them, talk about some takeaways. If you have questions, things you want me to talk about in that episode, send them my way on Twitter, @BoilersBeyond. Be sure to follow there so we can enjoy the conversation all summer. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. You can always email me, boilersandbeyondpod@gmail.com. We'll be back next week. Until then, guys, take care.